Hey everyone, Haley here from The Foiled Plan. You may remember me from my first and only other YouTube takeover for Auntie Tay's channel, where I showed you guys how to make an easy DIY canvas. Now today I'm going to be doing something a little bit different. This is the first time I've attempted to do this, so as I'm showing you guys how to do it, I'm also learning at the same time. Sometimes things don't always work out the way I had hoped, and you could say that my plan was foiled, but I usually can salvage what I'm working with and make the most of it. So today I am going to be making this home sign using one of Auntie Tay's new SVGs from her home sign bundles. This one says, "Happiness is homemade." I do think I did go a little bit small on the letters, but I still think it looks cute, and where I ended up putting it kind of works out that way. So you can go bigger on the letters, it's completely up to you. So the things that you're gonna need for this DIY project are, of course, a sign or a piece of wood, anything that is blank that you can put your design on. So this particular one I got at Michael's and it was slightly damaged, so I was able to get it for 10 bucks, which in Canada it's regularly $22, so I don't mind if there is a little bit of scuff or damage to it. I can still work with that. And then also what I used for this project were a lot of the products that are available in the mystery boxes, and I know there's only a few of these left. So if you guys want to get your hands on one of these, then you're definitely going to want to do that quickly, because once they're gone, these particular ones are done. And as you guys know, if you are members, you do receive 20% off your total order on shopantietay.com. Now, having said that, if you are not a member, but you would still like to purchase some of the supplies that I'm using today from shopantietay.com, you can use my code, which is The Foiled Plan, and you'll receive 10% off your order. So if you plan on buying something, then go ahead and use that. So the things that I used from the mystery box for this project were stencil vinyl, masking transfer tape, and then the other thing that I used from this box, which you can't see in here, is actually one of the glitter samples that came in the box, and it was the mermaid hair color, and I actually already have the full-size version of that, so as soon as I opened it I was like, I'm just gonna dump it right into that. So I did use the mermaid hair glitter. This is the old packaging, but still amazing glitter. And then the only other Auntie Tay product that I used that was not from the mystery box was the chalked up paint by the Creative Sister. And I used the color Ellie, but honestly all of the colors are really, really cute. So whatever your home decor is, just find a color that matches that and you're good to go. Now for this project, you will also need a couple of other things, and those are Mod Podge. Now I'm using the gloss one, but feel free to use whatever kind you want. Also, sponges. You'll be using these to apply your paint as well as the Mod Podge. And then lastly, you will need a small paintbrush, and this is just going to be for fixing up any teeny little details that smudged or just maybe didn't get enough paint. So that's all you guys need. Let's get into the tutorial. Today I'm using my iPad, so things may look a little bit different on my screen compared to what you see if you're using a computer or a phone. Alright, so as always, we open up Cricut Design Space and upload an image. Now I'm going to click Browse Files because I save all of my Auntie Tay SVG files in my Dropbox, and then I actually have an Auntie Tay folder inside my Dropbox so everything is organized. So I'm just going to click that. And then once that folder opens, I see that my Happiness is Homemade SVG from Auntie Tay is the first option. So I click that and it's going to allow me to save the image. So I'm just going to type in a name for it. I usually just type in exactly what the words say. And then I hit save.
Once that has saved, it'll take you back to this screen that shows you all of your recently uploaded images. Just click the first one and then insert. Alright, so for the next 2 steps, you can do them in either order, but first what I'm going to do is make sure everything is the same color so that I can cut it all on one mat, and then I will ungroup everything. So all I'm doing is clicking that sync button that you see at the bottom with the little eyedropper tool, and then just click the 3 lines next to each of the layers, and then drag them all to be under one color. Now, making sure that my object or image is selected, I'm going to click on Actions, which is on the lower menu bar, and click the button that says Ungroup. When I ungroup an image, it allows me to work with it in multiple sections. And as I mentioned before, it really doesn't matter the order in which you do those last 2 steps. As long as you do them, you're going to end up with the same end result. Alright, so now we are ready to resize the pieces of this home sign puzzle. Now, I didn't want to have to use a large cutting mat, so I just stuck with keeping my images no larger than 12 inches. I have in the past actually taped 2 regular size cutting mats together to make a large size cutting mat, and that worked fine for me, but I just figured I'm just gonna keep this easy peasy, and I just left it smaller than 12 inches. Once I was happy with the resizing, I just clicked on the Make It button, and I did actually still get one of the pop-up messages that says I'm going to be required to use a larger mat, but I just hit OK because I know I can move things around on the cutting mat before I actually cut it. So all I'm going to do is click on the heart, and then once that's selected, I can move it around. And if I'm strategic about my placement, I can make sure that I won't be required to use a larger cutting mat. You'll probably notice that the tail end of the letter S and the letter E on happiness and homemade are still kind of just over the 12-inch mark, which would be a standard sized cutting mat. Now, I'm sort of tricking the machine to think that it's using a larger mat, but I'm actually not. Now, if you actually look at a standard sized cutting mat, beyond the grid line, there's still a little bit of space on the cutting mat, so I do have a few millimeters to work with, so I know that the design is still gonna fit perfectly fine. Now, when you are placing objects when you're using stencil vinyl, you want to make sure that there is a good amount of space between each of the images so that you have actual stencil to work with, because you'll be weeding out the design and then using the negative space as your stencil. Okay, let's move on. So now that I've clicked continue, I am going to select my Cricut and connect it. Now we have to choose our material options. I do have stencil vinyl saved as a favorite, but if you didn't know, you can click on all materials, and then in the search bar, you can start typing in whatever type of material you're working with, and then you should find it right there. Alright, so I'm taking my stencil vinyl, unraveling it, and I'm going to lay it on top of my standard grip cutting mat. And I usually find that when stencil vinyl is unrolled, you end up with a lot of air bubbles. So a little trick to deal with that is to actually place it down and then peel back the stencil film. Then I use my brayer to smooth out any bubbles underneath the backing sheet, and I actually use a ruler to smooth down the stencil film back onto the backing sheet. Then, if need be, I use my brayer again and smooth out any bubbles that I still see that may affect my cut. Now I load the mat and hit the button to cut. And because I have so much extra stencil vinyl just sort of hanging off, I usually keep my hand there just as a bit of a support. Now that that's done, I hit the button to unload the mat, flip it over, and I peel the mat away from the stencil vinyl. Now I'm going to use my Fiskars paper trimmer, and I'm just going to trim down the excess pieces of stencil vinyl so that I can use it at a later time. All right, so I have my design in 3 different sections. So I'm gonna take each one of those sections, lay them down on top of my cutting mat, and then apply the masking transfer tape on top of those. Now, you can weed the design before you do that step, but I actually weed the design once I've got the stencil fully placed on my wooden blank. It's a personal preference situation, so just kind of do whatever feels right for you. Now I'm going to figure out where I want each of the pieces to be placed, peel the backing off the stencil vinyl, and stick it down. Now I can peel off that masking transfer tape, which comes off like butter, and if need be, I can use my weeding tool to just peel up one of the edges of the design, and then I can pull the rest off by hand. Now it's time to lay our base layer of Mod Podge down with our sponges. I actually learned this tip from Tiffany from OC Vintage Charm, and it's a great way to add a protective layer in there so that the paint doesn't bleed underneath the stencil. Let me tell you, it works like a charm. An OC Vintage Charm. Okay, I'll stop. I don't know if you noticed or not, but I'm actually just putting the Mod Podge directly onto my silicone crafting mat from Auntie Tay. It is super easy to clean up, so I figured less waste, I'll just put it right on there, and it was very easy to just clean up like it never even happened. Now I know that the Mod Podge is dry because it went from white to clear, and so I know I'm ready to apply my chalk paint. Now, when you're applying chalk paint, or really any type of paint, on top of a stencil, you want to make sure you're using a stippling motion, so just up, down, not a brushing motion, because you don't want the paint to go underneath the stencil and then cause bleeding. Another little tip when working with stencil vinyl is to make sure that you remove your stencil while your paint is still relatively wet. This is going to give you the best results possible, even though it can be a little bit tricky and messy on your hands to deal with. The reason that you want to do this is because if you wait until everything is completely dry and then peel your stencil vinyl off, you can also take up some of the paint that is part of the actual design because everything is dried together. Now I'm going to take my Auntie Tay glitter in the color Mermaid Hair and add another layer of Mod Podge onto the little heart with that same stippling motion. And I'm not going to wait for this to dry before applying the glitter because I really want the glitter to stick to the Mod Podge. So that's what I'm going to do. Ooh, now we got 2 camera angles so I can show you close up just how gorgeous that glitter is. Now I'm just going to tap off the excess glitter onto a piece of paper so that I can use that paper to dump it all back into the bottle because I am not about to waste this magical goodness. And just like I did with the chalk painted letters, I'm going to peel that stencil vinyl off the board before everything has completely dried. Then if there's any extra glitter that won't come off the board just by knocking it against the table, what I do is take a piece of packing tape or a lint roller and I just roll it along the board to pick up any extra pieces. And that's all I did to create this sign. You can also add an extra layer of Mod Podge on top of the glitter, but that's up to you.
Well guys, I hope you enjoyed hanging out with me today as I made this home decor sign. As I said in the beginning, next time I would probably go larger with the letters just because it is such a large piece of wood, but hindsight is 2020. Thank you so much to Auntie Tay for having me on your channel again. If you guys want to hang out with me some more, you can head on over to my YouTube channel. The link will be in the description box below. And I am the most active on Instagram, so you can find me there pretty much all the time. Well guys, thank you so much. Have a great day. That's all I'm gonna say. Bye!